Welcome to episode 5 of One Way Sports. Happy Friday to everybody out there listening. What a week it was in the sports world, and what a weekend we have upcoming. Full college football slate on Saturday, full NFL slate on Sunday, but that is not what we are here to talk about today. It is a massive, massive fight week in the UFC as UFC 306 Noche UFC Riyadh season goes down tomorrow night at Sphere in Las Vegas, a monumental event, not only for the sports world, but especially for the UFC. We will dive super deep into everything about this UFC 306 card. I will go through the entire main card, kind of breaking down each fight, giving my predictions, where I'm leaning, all this stuff. And then on the way out, we will get a PWay's Parlay part number 2. I said in the beginning that the parlays for football are not my strong suit, but the UFC ones are. I have a special one cooked up for you today. The odds are pretty large, but hey, when we're talking about PWay's Parlay, we're not looking for small payouts. We're looking for big payouts. So we will get to that later in the show. But everything UFC 306 coming up on today's podcast. We're going to start things off just talking about the Sphere in general, kind of what a milestone moment this could be for the sport, and then kind of what does the broadcast look like at home. And then obviously, like I said, I'll break down the whole main card and give you some fight predictions on the way out of here ahead of UFC 306 tomorrow night. All right, let's go ahead and jump into things right now. So I wanted to talk first about the Sphere. Obviously, every UFC pay-per-view is a massive week, but it's usually built solely around the main event, the co-main event. You get it, the big fighters, the big title fights. This card felt like for a lot of the buildup that it was basically billed as, hey, come to the Sphere and watch fights. Not as much billed as Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili and Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko 3. So that was interesting. I know Sean O'Malley had said some things in the buildup that he would have liked him to be promoted and his fight to be promoted more than the Sphere. He did say earlier this week that he talked to Dana, sat down with Dana, and he was pretty excited about what the plans were. John Anik has been giving some nuggets about just how mind-blowing and mind-boggling this pay-per-view could be. The Sphere is definitely not made to host sporting events. Dana White said on Tuesday night during his Dana White Contender Series press conference that the biggest hurdle was the lighting above the octagon. I don't know if any of you have been to a UFC fight or obviously you've all watched them on TV, but above the octagon is always this giant square of lighting, microphones in it. It basically is what lights up the octagon when all the lights turn off in the arena. That is what lights up the octagon. And the Sphere, that they don't have any of that. So it'll be interesting to see how the lighting in the Sphere looks. What is the sound like in the cage? Usually at home, we can obviously hear most of the strikes, hear punches landing, hear kicks landing, all those things. That's going to be an interesting hurdle for them to get over. And then Dana also said that the Sphere will be changing throughout the night. That caught my eye because he said that there will be a world that starts in the beginning, in the background of the Sphere, and then when the fight card ends, it'll be Mexico from the future. Now that sounds absurd, ridiculous, exciting. I can't wait to see what it looks like. I did hear him say it'll be more for when the fights aren't going on as opposed to when the fights are going on, because when the fights are happening, you want all the focus and the attention to be on the octagon, which I think Dana will be able to figure out and will be able to execute. So I'll be excited to see how does this world change? What does it even look like? What is the backdrop of the Sphere to the octagon with the camera angles? Are we just going to see the typical octagon shots while the fight's going on? Usually you can only see like the first row of media in the first row of like celebrities when they do that. So it'll be interesting to see how close are the seats to the actual cage. Usually they're really, really close. You know, you guys have watched enough UFC fights, but what does the cage dynamic look like in terms of seating around that bottom area, the floor area, where the UFC makes all their extra money, but putting a bunch of extra seats and charging, you know, the most expensive for those? So what does that look like? And then where do they walk out from? What are the walkouts going to look like? It's a concert venue. It is not built exactly like a basketball arena would be, where there's an away and a home entrance, and basically you have a red corner and a blue corner, and they walk out from, you know, the home or away entrance, and it's just repeated throughout the night. So I'll be intrigued to see how long is the walkout. Is it really short? You know, do they go through a sea of fans? Do they put it on the sphere? All these questions I have about the walkouts, because sometimes those can be really exciting when you see the walkouts and you can see the demeanor on the fighter's face. Sometimes you can tell and you can be fooled about a demeanor of a fighter going into that fight. I remember when Adesanya fought Pereira for the second time in the UFC, when he KO'd him, everyone was all nervous. Even his coach Eugene Behrman said afterwards that he thought Izzy was too fired up, too excited, too amped up to fight. He had that dog collar on and he was locked in, fired up. And Eugene, his head coach, said he was actually worried about Izzy going into that fight. But my point is you can sometimes gather and gain information from those walkouts just by a person's body language. I remember when Megan Anderson walked into the Apex to fight Amanda Nunes, you knew she was losing that fight because she just had no confidence on her face. Those things are interesting to me. We obviously got the hilarious moment when Kelvin Gastelum took off his shorts as well as his warm-up trainer. So I love the walkouts. Tai Tuivasa, does fun walkouts. So I'm intrigued and excited to see what does the walkout process look like. How does the sphere background change based on maybe what your song is or what what country you're from. Like, do the Mexican fighters get an even more special sphere kind of backdrop when they're walking out? Cannot wait to see some of those just little details that we sometimes can take for granted in the middle of the fight. So the sphere will be the star of the show, I think, until it'll be the star of the show when the fights aren't happening, as it should be. Because I've been to a couple UFC fights. In between fights, especially if there's an early finish, there is a lot of downtime of a whole lot of nothing. A lot of downtime to do nothing. And there's really, they can't really show, nobody wants to watch old fights in between. Maybe it would be entertaining, but there's really nothing happening inside the arena while they're in between fights. So the sphere will obviously help that. And that's when Dana said those mini movies will be introduced. I don't know if you guys heard this, but 6 mini movies within the broadcast. I think it's only during the main card. He said they're about 90 seconds long each. So he said there'll be a pay-per-view open. John Anik said he doesn't even know if he's going to do his traditional pay-per-view open where he does, where he reads and then he brings in Joe and he brings in DC and they break down the main event. So we'll see if that takes place. I love the John Anik pay-per-view opens. As somebody who used to work in television, his creative writing and ability to capture what the moment of the title fight is some of the best in the business. So what if we might just get a full sphere video pay-per-view open, which would be sick. And then I think he said before each of the next fights, there'll be another mini movie that culminates at the end of the main card. So that'll be pretty sick. And I think that's when the world is changing on the sphere, is during these mini movies. So excited to see what those entailed. Are they just about the history of Mexican combat sports, or are they also about the UFC history? Is it also about the main event and the co-main event? I don't know. I'm excited to see what does that entail in terms of these mini movies that Dana has been telling us about. Now, I don't want to talk too much about the sphere because there's not enough information out there. They've been keeping it so tight-lipped and tight-vest, which is, as a viewer, honestly pretty cool, because you can only let your mind go to places about what this event and what this card could potentially look like. And so that, to me, is almost more exciting than seeing little sneak previews of what the sphere could be like. Let's just see it on fight night. I'm okay with that, and I like that. And I also think Dana, Chael Sonnen or Daniel Cormier made this point that when Fight Island was first announced, Dana sold this big old thing like we were just going to basically fly these fighters in, drop them on an island, put a cage in the middle of the beach, and they were going to fight. Well, it wasn't exactly that. And so I think Dana has tried to not give as much detailed information about what the sphere could be and more about what the potential of it could look like, because he doesn't want to let the athletes, or not the athletes, the fans down. And for all the fans out there saying this card sucks, it's not better than 300, it's not better than 301, it's not better than 299, fuck off. Who gives a fuck? They're fighting at the Sphere. The first ever sporting event is at the Sphere, and it's a UFC fight. As an MMA fan, that is a legitimate milestone moment for this sport. The sport is somewhere 30-ish years old. That's obviously a 25-year poster. It's about 30 years old. I think 30 was last year, if I'm not mistaken, with the special gloves. This sport is 30 years old. The NFL is in their 105th season. The baseball has been playing since the 1800s. Like, what are we doing? Basketball has been playing forever as well. Like, this is the 30th year of the UFC, and you guys are complaining about the card they're putting on for the Sphere? Come on. Come on. The three top fights, the two title fights, and then Diego Lopes, Brian Ortega. Are you kidding me? Are you, like, come on. Come on. Like, that is a sick top three of the bill fight. And what's cool is they put all these Mexican fighters on there. So if they show up and show out and get massive finishes, the crowd is going to go nuts. And now you have new stars that you didn't know about before. And that is the beauty of UFC pay-per-view. I'm not sitting here telling you that it's better than 300 or it's better than some of the cards we've had this year. I'm not saying that. But to complain about it when it's the Sphere that is more the star of the show, and then we happen to get great fights on top of it, just miss me with that. I can't do that argument. I don't understand it. This is a massive milestone moment for the UFC, for MMA in general. This sport, 10 years ago, maybe even it was 8 years ago, couldn't even sanction fights in New York City. Think about it. In New York City, they couldn't even sanction fights. Now we're having fights at the Sphere. $20 million budget, probably more if I had to take a guess. Dana brings in Riyadh season, Saudi Arabia, to help pay for this. Like, that shows you how much detail and how much money Dana is putting into this broadcast. He even said on Tuesday as well that he usually has a red phone to call the control room when he doesn't like what he sees on broadcast. He said, "Don't even give me one of those phones. I can't say anything that's going to let them, that's going to help them do their job." He even said they brought in more producers, more high level guys, all this stuff, more trucks. So I'm expecting something insane. But the milestone is that the UFC has now made it to a point where it is slowly in my opinion, it is the fifth biggest sport in America right now. It's hard. I would argue it's higher than that, but to be fair, I still think football is still number one. I think basketball is number two, and then I think baseball is three, and I guess MMA. I think MMA is four now, and hockey might even be three, and baseball might even be five. I don't watch enough baseball or follow it enough to. We're getting off the point here, but I think MMA is slowly, rapidly rising to become a top two sport in the world. I think in my lifetime, within the next 20 years or so, the UFC will be just behind the NFL. I think you've seen the success of the NFL in the way they market it, in the way they have parity. The UFC has a lot of those similar things in terms of parity. I think we've seen the 4 belts change hands just this year alone off the top of my head, which is just nuts. Topuria won his belt this year. Muhammad won his belt this year. I guess not as many as I thought, but it is. There's always new champions. You think about Strickland, Izzy, DDP. They've all had a belt in the last couple of years. You think about what 205 has been since John Jones has left. 170 now. Was Usman, now Edwards, now Bilal, and then you have these killers coming up behind them. 55 Islam, and then everyone else. And then 45 you have Topuria, but Max is back on the mend, and then you had Volkanovski. So my point is that there are always new stars, and there are always more title fights happening and people in the belt changing hands, which only benefits the sport, in my opinion. Now, you obviously want your big time superstars to win and can continue to win, but you've seen the star Dustin Poirier has become with knocking out Conor McGregor. You can build other stars through other people. And I think the biggest thing that's made a guy like Adesanya, and especially a guy like Shevchenko O'Malley, a superstar, is performances. Yes, they do all that stuff outside the cage that we all love, the dancing, the swag, the everything else. But it's the performances that made Conor McGregor famous, tied into the sayings. And it's the performances of Izzy that made him famous and got him where he is. And now it's the performances of Shevchenko O'Malley that have got him to this moment in time. MMA has grown leaps and bounds since COVID. I think Dana said their audience went up 60% in COVID. If you are a COVID fan, do yourself a favor and just go find as many old UFC fights as you can. First one that comes to my head is Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Eddie Alvarez. Go find old fights. John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson. Like find the fights of all fights. Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, Max Holloway, Jose Aldo. Like find these fights. To find a Demetrius Johnson fight, please. Find a vintage Stipe Miocic fight, or find a vintage Daniel Cormier fight. Like there's been so many legends. Watch Bisping knock out Luke Rockhold. I could go on for days, but what the sport has now risen to in terms of Main Street audience is beautiful to watch. There's no doubt in my mind that this pay-per-view will do over 1 million pay-per-view buys because of the Sphere, combined with the fact that Sugar has enough fans that people will want to see him fight as well. But what a milestone for MMA to be the first live sporting event in the Sphere, and now becoming even more and more and more mainstream. They could gain 20% more following this weekend if people are just curious enough to want to know what a sporting event looks like in the Sphere. Because I think the Sphere has now captured the eyes of a lot of people. If you have enough social media, seeing the videos from inside of it, of like the Planet Earth stuff or the concerts, I think people are intrigued enough to want to know what a sporting event will look like in there. And then on top of it, it's the UFC. It's fighting. I mean, that is that can get everybody juiced up, fired up to go watch with your friends and all that stuff. I'm curious to see what the broadcast at home looks like. I touched on that a little bit earlier. What do the camera angles look like? What can we see of the Sphere while the fight's going on? Is it distracting for the viewer at home? I'll be intrigued to see, but this is the best broadcast team in the business right now. I think the NFL and WWE in terms of live production and putting on an event and putting it on TV, there's nobody even close. So I'll be excited to see if the UFC can even be more creative tomorrow night, doing things that they haven't been able to do with just different camera shots and using the Sphere to their advantage, all that stuff. So I'm excited to see what all of that looks like on Saturday nights. Man, I'm excited to see the Sphere, man. I'm excited just to there's nothing like big UFC pay-per-view weeks. There's just simply nothing like big UFC pay-per-view weeks that you're watching history unfold. Obviously, every time in a sporting event takes place, it's history. But when belts are on the line, there's just a different energy about the week. There's a different smell in the air when you wake up, all that stuff. The embeddeds have been pretty good this week as well, but that's enough of me rambling kind of just about what the event is and what we can be looking for, and just kind of what this moment means for MMA moving forward. And now it is time to jump in to the full breakdown of the main card. Here we go. First fight, we're going to start with the main event, obviously. Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili. It's just fun to say that last name as well. Sugar is the minus 135 favorite. Merab plus 115. I believe Sugar opened as a plus 130 underdog and then was bet all the way to minus 135. That means the sharps are like hopping on with big numbers to bet Sugar if he is now a minus 135 favorite. I think this is what it should be. I always ask myself, and when I talk to my buddies about who can win fights, who has more ways to win? I think Sugar can KO him without a doubt. I think Merab can win a decision without a doubt. Do I think Sugar can submit Merab? 100%. Do I think Merab can submit Sugar? No. Do I think Merab can KO Sean? No. Not at all. I think he has 2 finishes maybe in his career, and the one that he has in the UFC over Marlon Rice is a ground and pound. Merab definitely has the cardio advantage, but he has the cardio advantage when he's fighting his fight. What happens if he's fighting at distance? Sugar's hitting him with those teep kicks to the body, landing jabs, keeping him at distance, stuffing takedowns, always keeping him anxious with the feints. It's a different, that nervous energy when you're not fighting your fight can zap that gas tank real quick. The other thing, Sugar has a 4-inch reach advantage and a 5-inch height advantage. That means, simply, if you think about it, what happened in Sugar's last fight? well, he went 5 rounds with Cheeto and ran up the numbers on him, all that stuff. That knee that sounded like a gunshot to Cheeto's head. That is what the first thing I think about when I see 5-inch height advantage for Sugar. That knee came up so fast to hit Cheeto. If Merab shoots from a bad distance and eats that knee, good fucking night. He's going to sleep. If not, he's going to get dropped and Sugar will pound him out just like he did his best friend, Sterling. I think it's without a doubt a massive, massive thing to watch is if Merab can't close the distance, because I mentioned there's a 4-inch reach advantage as well, but when you're down 5 inches on height, that's a lot to be given up. If Merab can't close distance and get on the inside and get his hands together and take Sean down and hold him down, that's the one thing people forget about Merab. He can take people down repeatedly because his cardio is so good. He is not very good at holding people down at all. He's not very good at holding people down. I don't believe that. He can repeatedly get takedowns, but I don't think he's very good at holding people down. And when you have a smaller guy like Merab and then a guy like Sugar who's really tall, it's those lengthy guys are so hard to take down. So hard to take down. And do I think Merab's a better wrestler than Aljamain Sterling? Fuck no. Fuck no. He's more relentless in his pressure to get takedowns. But in terms of pure grappling, Sterling is way better. Way better. And Sterling couldn't get Sugar down with a bad rib. And he got KO'd because he was trying to close that distance too fast. Boom, one step back, the right hand. And Sugar's the champ. But that knee up the middle, man, it's something I'm watching. Those teep kicks to the body, knees up the middle, and the jab to keep Merab at distance are the main weapons I will be watching from Sugar. Obviously, the right hand and the left hand, depending on what stance he comes out in. He's the best stance switcher in the game, in my opinion. Him and Izzy. It's so effortless the way they switch stances. You don't even see it. Drickus also does it pretty solidly. But in terms of using the footwork to set up their striking and what they're trying to attack, I think Izzy and Sugar have something going down. Something going on that's just different. And Chael Sonnen also mentioned on his breakdown that he believes that Sean has the best distance control in the game. Best distance control in the game. And that's why he KO'd Sterling. Because his distance is so good. So good. He feels Sterling coming in. Just one step back, right hand. One step back, right hand. You think about the Eddie Wineland KO. He knows exactly where he's at on distance. Gives him that uppercut, feint right hand over the top. Julian Paiva, he just knows how to catch people right in that pocket, right in that spot. And he digs to the body and then comes back up top for a finish. You think about that knee he hit Peter Yan with. That's a similar knee I'm thinking about he can hit Merab with. And I think the Peter Yan fight is the most important thing to think about in this one because of it's a similar stylistic matchup in terms of height, pressure, not pressure, height in danger in terms of Yan had the danger of the striking. Merab has the danger in terms of the pressure in the takedown ability, but the same height. And Sugar landed at a really solid rate against Yan. Still up for debate if he won that fight. The 3 guys sitting cage side said he won that fight, so he won that fight. But Sugar was able to hurt Yan a bunch of times and land big shots. I think he'll do the same thing here tonight, or tomorrow night, excuse me. The dynamic between Merab and Aljamain Sterling is very interesting. Supposed best friends, wouldn't fight each other for the title. Merab takes Sugar's jacket, all that nonsense. But then Merab comes out earlier this week and says, they never offered me to fight Sterling, and if they did, I might have. So is Merab trying to get some get back for his friend Aljo on Saturday? And is he going to fight angry and emotional? Or is he just knows it's his time now, Aljo had his time, and he's going to be cool, calm, and collected and focused like he always is? Something interesting to watch. And Merab also hates Sean's coach, Tim Welch. When they did that promo shoot for Riyadh UFC, he said he wanted to fight Tim. Tim also was a professional fighter and is probably double the size of Merab. That's just dumb. But it's interesting. The teams, Merab really doesn't like Sugar and his team. I don't think Sugar has any care in the world about Merab. He said in his press conference on Tuesday that he's just dumb. He's just a dumb person. I remember when he jumped into the lake that was frozen and he cracked his head open. So I don't think Merab or Sugar has any feelings towards Merab, but Merab has some serious feelings towards Sugar. And we would have already seen the press conference by the time this comes out, and we'd have already seen the first face-off, but I'll be interested to see what the last face-off here tonight, Friday night at the ceremonials, look like. Because it's going to be a one-sided crowd. It's going to be on Sugar's side. So, Sugar comes into this one 18-1-1, last 3 wins. Decision over Peter Yan, KO over Aljamain Sterling, decision over Chito Vera. Now, he's number 5 in the UFC among active fighters in significant strike accuracy at 62%. He is a sniper. Sugar rarely misses. You think about that Moutinho fight, I think he landed at like an 80% clip or something like that. And against against Chito, he was lighting him up like a fucking Christmas tree. And I love Chito. That was hard to watch. But Sugar was levels above Chito that night. Levels. He also is number 4 in strikes landed per minute at 7.67. So not only is he accurate, but he also lands at a clip that very few fighters in the UFC can land at. And he lands those sniping punches and the ones that can put your lights out. In the 7 strikes per landed per minute, 7 times 5 is 35. 35 a round. That's why he KOs people so fast. He also has a 62% takedown defense. He got taken down early in his UFC career, but the main ones I want to focus on is he got taken down by Peter Yan. Didn't get taken down by Sterling. So in his last 2 fights, he's not been taken down. He also took Peter Yan down he got swept a bunch of times against Yan. They weren't like full wrestling takedowns. It doesn't matter. He still got taken down. 62% takedown defense is pretty good, especially when I bring you the stat about Merab's takedown offense percentage. It's not very good. Not very good. But if you ask me, I know Sugar, what he always does when Bruce Ruff announces him 0-0. That Chito loss is not a real loss. It's just not it is a loss, but he didn't get beat by Chito that night, in my opinion. Yeah, he had the leg injury. Chito stops him. A fight's a fight. He gets the win. I love Chito because it pushed his career forward as well. I just don't see Merab being able to do things to Sugar that are going to give him serious problems. I just really don't. People, I think, underestimate Sugar's cardio because of the Yan fight. It's like he just went 5 with Now, it's interesting. His cardio is built for kickboxing. It's not built for a bunch of wrestling. So if he has to scramble and wrestle a bunch, does that take some of that sting off the punches? Does it take a little of the speed away? I don't think so. I think Sugar is just entering his prime right now. You see what he's doing outside the cage. No bullshit. Always training. Always living a healthy lifestyle. I think his cardio shows. If he needs to show it on Saturday, I think he does, and I think people are genuinely surprised at what he can do. All right, let's talk about Merab before I get to my official prediction for the main event. Merab 17-4, started 0-2 in the UFC, and has now won 10 straight fights coming into Saturday night. I don't care what division you're in. I don't care how the guys you're fighting. 10 wins in the UFC in a row is absurd, especially when you look at the last 3. Jose Aldo, Peter Yan, Henry Cejudo. You're talking about 3 former champs right there. 3 former champs in a row, and maybe the greatest featherweight of all time, and maybe the greatest flyweight of all time. I mean, Merab's been on a fucking tear lately. What he did to Yan was insane. 50-45'd him, and Yan looked like a whole different fighter. Didn't look like himself whatsoever. Merab's a beast. They call him the machine for a reason. I mean, he is a machine. He never stops. And whenever he's done fighting, it looks like he can fight another fight because his cardio is just out of this world. I think it's the best in the sport, maybe the best of all time. I would have to really dive deep into that, but I've never seen this dude get tired. And the reason he doesn't get finished when he gets rocked is because his cardio is so good you need great cardio and to be able to withstand big time punches and to not get KO. Daniel Cormier says that all the time. His 10-fight win streak's the third longest active streak in the UFC, only behind Islam Makhachev and John Jones. So you're talking about two of the greatest of all time right there. And he's right behind him there. 79 takedowns is the most of any active UFC fighter. Now, I mentioned Sugar's takedown defense was 62%. Merab has 79 takedowns, but he lands them at a 36% clip. That's why I said it's a repeated effort to take people down. It's not a get your hands locked, take you down, hold you down for the rest of the round type of stuff. It's a, hey, I'm going to take you down. You're going to get up eventually, and then I'm going to take you down again. And then you're going to get up, and I'm going to take you down again. And again, and again, and again, and again. And that's what he did to Jan. He just puts a pressure on you that you just don't want to deal with. In the Aldo fight, I can remember in the third round, it just looked like Aldo was like, this is boring. I hate fighting like this. I don't want to deal with this pressure anymore. I'm just going to stand against the cage and put my arms up and complain that the ref's not stepping in when I'm doing nothing to defend my position. The pressure is the sticking point for Tim Welch and Sugar Sean O'Malley. They have to use movement to negate that pressure. If they can't use movement to negate the pressure, could be a very long night for Suge. Could be a very long night for Suge. Everyone that I have heard has been saying this fight only ends two ways. O'Malley wins by KO, Merab wins by decision. I disagree that those are the only two ways that this fight can go. I think O'Malley can win a decision. Why can't he? Why can't he? If he keeps him at distance for 25 minutes, doesn't get taken down repeatedly, keeps the distance, he will pick Merab apart all night. Now, the only caveat to that is I don't know if Merab's chin is going to be able to hold up for 25 minutes of Sugar's punches. But I think Sugar can win a decision easily. Now, do I think Merab can win by KO? No, I do not. If Peter Yan can land his biggest punch against Sugar and not KO him or not even drop him, Merab's got no chance. No chance of KOing him. Do I think Merab can win by decision? Yes, that's his only way to win. He will not submit Sugar, and he will not KO him at all. So that leaves you with my prediction for this main event. If you know me, you know which way I'm going already, because I've been saying it from the day this fight was announced. Sean O'Malley will KO Merab Dvalishvili inside of 2 rounds. I have no doubts about that. 0. I want to say first, but you have to give respect to a fighter like Merab. You look back at that Marlon Moraes fight. You look back at that Henry Cejudo fight. He gets dropped in both those fights by the same punch. Left hook, baby. Nice little clean counter left hook from Moraes and Cejudo. Now, Moraes has crazy power for 35. Cejudo does not. So if Cejudo can drop Merab, Sugar's going to KO him quickly. The speed advantage is going to be insane. The weapons advantage on the feet is going to be tenfold. Merab just doesn't have enough to deal with Sugar's ability on the feet unless he can repeatedly get takedowns and hold Sugar down. I don't see that happening. I think it's and still. Sugar sweeps Team Sarah Longo. Second title defense. Number 1 superstar in the sport. That is my official prediction for the main event for UFC 306. Let's go co-main event now. Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko, number 3. Grasso's the minus 135 favorite. Valentina coming back at plus 115. It is wild to see Valentina as an underdog. If you've watched this sport long enough, You remember when Valentina, for like 3 consecutive fights, I believe it was a minus 950, a minus 825, and then like a minus 1,000. Those were her odds to win her fights. It was absurd. Like just her and Amanda Nunes, when they would fight, the odds would just be like, hey, you have to bet your mortgage of your house to win back $100. Essentially, like that's what it felt like. It felt like you had to essentially drain your bank account just to win $100 back on these two women because they were so levels above their competition, and the sports books knew it. Now this is the third fight. In case you forgot, first one, Valentina was winning. I think it was 2-1 at least, if not 3-0. Fourth round, she throws a spinning back kick. Alexa Grasso takes her down, rear naked choke, and knew. That was a savage submission by Grasso. She jumped on her back so fast, and you'd never seen Valentina in positions like that for an extended period of time where she looked like she was legitimately in trouble, and Grasso gets it done. In the rematch, I thought Valentina won the rematch. I did. Unless you think round 5 was a 10-8, which I do not. Valentina, it was a draw in the second fight, in case you guys forgot. So it's 1-0-1 to Grasso. Rounds 1 and 3, all of the judges gave to Valentina. Round 2, all the judges gave to Grasso. So it's 2-1 Valentina heading into the fourth, excuse me. In the fourth, 2 judges give it to Valentina, so she wins that round. It's 3-1 heading into the 5th round. 3-1 on the scorecards heading into the 5th. Grasso wins the scorecards in all of them in the 5th. But one of them is a 10-8, which leaves us at a scorecard of 48-47 Grasso, 48-47 Shevchenko, and the dreaded 47-47 draw. I didn't really want to see this fight for a third time, if I'm being completely honest. But am I mad at it? No. Because Alexa's so good, and Valentina is the bullet, and she's the greatest female flyweight of all time. Here's a quick stat for you. Alexa Grasso is the only other person in UFC history to even hold an interim or an undisputed piece of the flyweight division. They essentially created the 125 division for Valentina because she was too big or too small to be fighting at 135. Same reach, same height. Valentina's 5 years older, though. Alexa firmly in her prime. Valentina coming off 2, I guess the draw is not a loss, but 2 straight fights where she does not leave the octagon with her belt. My question now becomes, if it's a third straight time, 2 losses and a draw, is this Valentina's last fight ever in the UFC? You're going to say, Parker, you're crazy. She's still on top of the world. She's still, if not the best at 125, she's the second best. That's all well and good. She's 36 years old. She has a number of belts at home. She's walking into the Hall of Fame when she's done. She will be the greatest flyweight of all time, and I have a hard time believing that somebody in my lifetime is going to win 8 title fights in that division. Now, they may be more impressive. We're not going to dive too deep into that. But Valentina's legacy is firmly entrenched in the UFC Hall of Fame as probably the second greatest women's fighter of all time, behind Amanda Nunes. But you look at the next 4 behind her, so she's the number 1 contender. Is she going to fight Marion Fiorot? If Grasso wins, that's the next title fight. Is she going to fight Erin Blanchfield, who's coming off a loss to Fiorot? Maybe. She can definitely win that fight. I believe Valentina can win all of these fights. I'm just saying, does she want those things? Then you have Macy Barber. Does Valentina really want to deal with kind of the promotion that would come along with that fight? And then you have Thug Rose Namajunas. Now that is the one that I think would be booked if Valentina loses. I think they'll try to book Rose Valentina if Valentina doesn't retire, because whoa, that is a main event if I've ever seen one in terms of name value, in terms of stakes in a division. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight at all. But I don't know if I am fully convinced that if Valentina loses, that she fights again in the UFC after that. She's the ultimate competitor. She's been doing this forever, but it's just, does anybody else get her excited? And does she want to chase a path back to the belt. We'll see. Grasso's on a 6-fight unbeaten streak, 5 wins, and then the draw. 44.67 significant strikes landed per minute and a 59% takedown defense. She does most of her work on the feet with her hands, if not all of her work on the feet with her hands. She has a great ground game as well. She's not a great takedown artist, but she has a good ground game. Valentina has the records at 125 for wins, 9, KO wins, 4, and title fight wins, 8. She's the GOAT in this division. It's not even close. She lands 3.28 significant strikes per minute, and she has a 63% takedown accuracy and a 71% defense. So Valentina is obviously so well-rounded. She hasn't been as dynamic, I guess, on the feet, or as much volume on the feet as she has lately. I don't know what that is. If Alexa just poses different problems for her on the feet than others have in the past. Alexa also was able to get out of her crucifix position, the one that Valentina stops everybody in. So I think Alexa has put kinks in the armor of Valentina's confidence. Because forever she was quite literally untouchable. Nobody could even fuck with her in any way, shape, or form. I remember we used to freak out when she would lose a round. It was like she just won this fight 4-1 and it wasn't even close. Yeah, she lost the round because Jennifer Maia got a takedown and just did nothing for 3 minutes. Her only, so before the Grasso loss, she had only ever lost to Amanda Nunes at a weight class up. And people believe that she won one of those fights. Alexa called her weird. They filmed The Ultimate Fighter together. I'm ready for these two to be done. I think they're ready to be done. It feels a lot like Moreno Figueiredo. Just, you want to see these people fight different people. Yes, the fights are good when they fight each other, but going into a third fight, rarely do you see anything different than what you've seen in the first 2 fights. So that's kind of my hesitation about getting too excited for this fight. I'll be very excited to see what the crowd looks like for Grasso when she walks out, though, because that's going to be something special. Hard to lean one way or another here because they've been so even through 50 minutes of fighting, essentially. But I'm going to pick Valentina Shevchenko because she's plus money. I thought she won the second fight. She was winning the first fight. And yet she's still an underdog here in the third fight. In terms of ways to win, I think they equally have as many ways to win. Equally. Both win by decision. I think they can both submit each other. I think they can both hurt each other, maybe not KO each other. If Valentina lands that head kick, she can KO Alexa for sure. But I think Alexa can also drop Valentina too and hurt her bad. But I'm going to pick Valentina because of the odds are in her favor. And like I said, I thought the first 2 fights were way closer than probably some people may remember. And I thought she won the second fight. So Valentina Shevchenko by decision is my bet, or her money line plus 115, whatever number you like better. Let's get to the people's main event. Boy, how good is this, fellas? We were supposed to get it. Was that 2 pay-per-views ago? Let me find that out. We were supposed to get it. It's number 3 Brian Ortega versus number 13 Diego Lopes. Let me find out exactly when this was. 303. Yeah, so it's 3 pay-per-views ago. You might remember 303 was supposed to be Conor McGREGOR. I believe that was International Fight Week, and then it wasn't. So they put new title fights on the card, and then they put this Diego Lopes versus Brian Ortega fight on the card at 145. People were excited about it right away. Ortega weighs in on Friday. Saturday morning, gets sick, can't fight. They tell Lopes 3 hours before the fight's off. Then Dan Ige basically calls Hunter Campbell, the CEO, and just says, don't take this opportunity away from me. They end up fighting. Diego Lopes gets the decision win. Didn't look as good, but when you're fighting on 3 weeks notice or on 3 hours notice and you've weighed in 3 separate times now, I think you give him a pass there. What does Ortega look like, though? Because there was rumors that he wanted to move to 55 before he took the short notice fight with Diego Lopes. So with the 3 months since, the illness, has he got his body back to featherweight Brian Ortega? Or is this just a one-off and then he's going to move back to 55, which means it's going to be a hell of a cut which would have made it a hell of a cut. I don't know. But man, this fight's good. Lopes is a 3-inch height advantage and a 3.5-inch reach advantage. Lopes is also 4 years younger. He fights like a madman. He kind of fights the first round like Charles Oliveira does. Charles Oliveira just comes at you like he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't give a fuck who you are or what you can do. Lopes does that too. He just comes right at you because his cardio is really good. His striking is phenomenal, and he's got a sick ground game. Now, on the other hand, Brian Ortega, a little bit of a slow starter. Didn't start very slow against Yair, but history tells me that Brian is not as fast of a starter as a guy like Diego is. So Brian's going to have to be ready from the jump. He's going to have to be ready from the jump because Lopes is coming right after him. I can guarantee you that. That he's coming right after him. Ortega is also the underdog at plus 150. Lopes is the favorite at minus 180. Ortega, the thing that worries me most is he's only had one fight in the last 789 days. Some of that injury related, some of it just time off. And that was in February when he beat Yair Rodriguez by submission. 4.07 strikes landed per minute. That's only a 38% accuracy. And then he also has a 57% takedown defense. Ortega, when he's on, think of the Chan Sung Jung Korean Zombie fight, is so special to watch. Because his ground game is absurd. But when he's got the hands going, that's world champion material right there. And that's T-City we're talking about. T-fucking-City. I just would like to see him land more efficiently on the feet, especially against a guy like Lopes, who's going to come right after him. I don't worry about Brian's takedown defense at all. I think it's at 57 because he's fine getting taken down because he's so damn good off his back, setting up those triangles. On the other hand, you have Lopes, who's on a 4-fight win streak, 3 first-round finishes, and then the decision versus Dan Ige. He was starching people. After that Mosar Evloya fight, when he got the call on a week's notice, he just, next fight, KO, next fight, KO, next fight, KO, all in the first round. And his hair and his personality made his stock jump leaps and bounds with the fan base, including myself. He's the #1 active UFC fighter in submission average per 15 minutes. He throws up almost 3.5 submissions per fight. Dude just wants to finish people. And then he has a 55% significant strike accuracy. That's why he KOs people. Because he lands efficiently, but he can also submit you. What did each guy learn? Or what does each guy think of the other is kind of my question. Because is Ortega just trying to hold his spot? Because if he gets a finish over Lopes, what do they run Volk and Ortega back for the #1 contender fight? Like, that was a great fight. Does Volk move to 55 and Ortega now jumps in to fight the winner of Max and Ilya? Who knows? It's an interesting spot because Ortega, if he does want to move to 55, it almost behooves him to win this fight because they're going to give him a title fight if he does. But maybe it does also help him get a bigger fight at 55. I don't know. It's interesting. Very interesting. Lopes 13 could vault himself into one. Lopes is 2 fights away from a title right now. 2. He beats Ortega. He beats Yair Rodriguez or maybe Arnold Allen. He will fight for a title. He's 2 wins away from a title fight. He might even just be 1, depending on how the situation shakes out. I want to see this fight go to the ground pretty badly. Because both of these guys are... I just want to see the scrambles. I want to see the scrambles of these guys just doing stuff that you rarely ever see in an octagon and you only see in the highest level of jiu-jitsu and scrambling in grappling matches. I'm excited to see them on the feet trade if they do. But I really want to see them go to the ground. And I'll also be interested to see who the crowd is rooting for in this one. Ortega, obviously, is a Mexican fighter, but Lopes is a Brazilian, but now trains with Alexa Grasso in Mexico. So is he kind of their adopted son and they root for him over Ortega? I think this fight might be where the crowd is most just live tomorrow night. Because this is going to be a special one. If these two guys show up and fight how they're supposed to, boy, it's going to be fight of the night probably, if I had to take a guess. My official prediction, this is a tough one for me. Very tough one for me. I just think the odds are messed up. Ortega has fought Yair Rodriguez, Korean Zombie, Max Holloway, Volkanovski, you name it. He's fought him. Cub Swanson. Lopes, his best win is Dan Ige. Ige's a hell of a fighter, but he is not one of those four that I named for Ortega. Level of competition is nowhere even comparable. I'm going to pick Brian Ortega. Am I nervous about it? 100%. 100%. Because Lopes has just been on a tear. And his confidence is through the roof. He even said, I plan on finishing Ortega and then cornering Alexa Grasso right after. Ballsy. I wonder if Brian Ortega takes that as disrespectful. If we get T-City locked in, focused, ready to win, the guy we got against Yair, he beats Diego Lopes. He will. He will beat Diego Lopes. And I think he can finish him. But both of those guys are too tough. I want to see this go 15 minutes. I want to see this go 15 minutes. But I'm going to take Brian Ortega at plus 150 money line. Think this should be closer to... Really think this should be closer to like one... Lopes is at like minus 125 and Ortega plus 115. That's kind of the way I see it. So to get Ortega at plus 150, I'm not going to pass up on it. Now, will I be upset if Lopes wins? No, because he's so fun to watch. But I just think Ortega's fought the better competition and will be ready to go Saturday night at Sphere. All right, let's talk the fight right before them. Daniel Zellhuber and Esteban Ribovics at 155 pounds. Zellhuber, big favorite, minus 235. Ribovics comes back at a plus 190. I think this number's so high because Zellhuber has an 8-inch reach advantage. That is gigantic. 8 inch. I mean, 8 inches. I got the reach on you, brother. Both fighters lost their UFC debut and have gone a combined 5-0 since. Ribovics. Well, let's see here. They have a combined 28 wins. And 24 of them are by is that right? Did I do the math right? 22. Yeah, 28. 22 of 28 wins are by finish. So these guys are killers, finishers, man. Zellhuber's coming off a unanimous decision win in February. And then Ribovics is coming off a head kick of the year nominee of Terrence McKinney, T-Rex, in the first round. If you didn't see it or you haven't seen it, go look it up. It's fucking violent as fuck. KO, that was in May. It almost reminded me a little bit of the Kevin Lee, Gregor Gillespie KO, where he just gets hit and his whole body just falls back. It was violent, and I like Terrence McKinney a lot, so it's very hard for me to see that happen. But Ribovics is a killer, man. Both these guys are really, really good. Zellhuber, 10 of his 15 wins by finish, and he's got 5.86 significant strikes landed per minute at a 41% accuracy. That's a lot. I mean, and he's got a 94% takedown defense. So he does not get taken down, and he lights you up on the feet with that huge reach that he has. Ribovics, on the other side, has never been finished, and 12 of his 13 wins are by finish. Now, Zellhuber said in the countdown that I just watched that he came here, or he said after his last fight, After his unanimous decision, he told his coaches, no matter who I fight next, I'm getting a finish. Just so happens he gets Ribovics, who's never been finished. So is his motivation just to get the finish, or is his motivation to get a win and hope that he gets a finish as well? Ribovics, 6.2 significant strikes landed per minute at a 52% accuracy, and he's got a 66% takedown accuracy. So he likes to mix it up a little bit more. But both these guys are accurate, and they throw a lot. I'm expecting fireworks. I don't know if this fight gets out of the first round. You always hope they do, but you always hope they don't at the same time. I'm hoping for 4 crazy minutes in this fight, and then somebody gets KO'd. I don't really have a pick for you. I don't know much about these guys at all. I would have to pick Zellhuber because he has an 8-inch reach advantage, and I would probably bet him if I'm going to win by KO. I don't know what that number is off the top of my head. Let me see if I can find it for you right now. But how do you bet against a guy that has an 8-inch reach advantage? That just feels kind of dumb. That's so significant and so big. Let's see here. What is Zellhuber? Daniel Zellhuber to win by KO, plus 300. So if you like him to win and you want to bet him to win by, finish, it's way better than minus 235. You can get him at plus 300. Or if you like Ribovics, fuck it. Upset, plus 190, do it. I just don't think he's going to be able to overcome the 8-inch reach advantage. Therefore, I'm picking Zellhuber. Daniel Zellhuber to win by KO. He's also one of the Mexican fighters on the card, so he'll be very well supported in the Sphere on Saturday. All right, last one on the main card. Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Ode Osbourne at 125 pounds at flyweight. Rodriguez, small favorite, minus 140. Osbourne comes back at plus 110. We just mentioned an 8-inch reach advantage. How about 7.5 for you? Ronaldo Rodriguez, 7.5-inch reach advantage on Ode Osbourne. And Ode is really not known as a big-time striker. And even if he was, 7.5 inches is a lot to give up because you got to really work your way on the inside, rip the body, come back up top. I'm not a striking expert, but feels like when you got a 7.5-inch reach disadvantage, you got to get inside punching range somehow. You can't just stay in kickboxing range. Excuse me. Rodriguez is on a 6-fight win streak. 5 of those have come outside the UFC, though. It's only his second UFC fight coming up on Saturday. Won his UFC debut by rear naked choke in the second round back in February. Now keep that in your mind. Ronaldo Rodriguez, only UFC win by rear naked choke. I'll tell you why in a second. 12 of his 16 wins are by stoppage. So this guy's on a nice little streak here. Just got signed by the UFC. Confidence is high. They put him as the pay-per-view opener for Mexican Independence Day card. He is a Mexican fighter. A lot of pressure on a young fighter like that. Lots of pressure. Ode Osbourne, on the other hand, UFC veteran, been in the game for a little bit now. 4 fights in the UFC, but he's not 4 fights. Excuse me. He's lost 3 of his last 4 fights. The last 2 losses, though, by rear naked choke. So Rodriguez is coming off his only win in the UFC by rear naked choke. In Osbourne's last 2 losses, he was finished by rear naked choke. I don't know if the matchmakers did that on purpose. Because if Osbourne gets submitted by another rear naked choke, he will be cut. I can guarantee you that, because you cannot lose a fight in the UFC 3 straight ways the same way and expect them to keep you around. Especially a rear naked. No offense, but that's maybe the most basic choke in the game besides a guillotine. So you got to be able to defend a rear naked choke if you're going to be a high-level UFC fighter. Ode cannot lose this fight, I don't think, at all. He definitely can't lose by rear naked choke, or he probably loses his job. Now, Ode is a really good fighter. He has 8 first-round finishes, 5 wins by KO, 4 wins by sub. He's well-rounded. I don't love this matchup for him, plain and simple. Don't love it at all. If you do want to bet Osbourne at plus money, though, you would do it because you think the pressure of a second UFC fight at Sphere on the Mexican Independence Day card for a Mexican fighter will be too much for him to handle. Let me see how old he is. I don't think he's very old at all. Born in 1999. Yeah, he's 20. He's 25. So he's still a very young fighter. If he can handle this pressure of everything that this Sphere card is with Mexican Independence Day and a good opponent, could really see something special from this kid moving forward, especially at 125, which is the most underrated division at the highest level in the sport. The speed in the combinations in the skill level at that weight class is off the fucking charts. Pantoja, the champion, is so skilled and so fun to watch and pushes a crazy pace. But I love watching 125ers fight. I'm excited they're opening up the pay-per-view. I think it'll be a good pay-per-view opener. I'm going to pick Rodriguez to win this fight. It's the reach advantage. It's the reach advantage. If this was like a 2-inch reach advantage, I probably would pick O'Day just because of the spot that Rodriguez is in. But 7.5-inch reaches is such a big advantage to give up on the feet, especially when you're a pretty solid striker like Rodriguez is, and he's on a 6-fight win streak. Also on the card, which I'm not going to dive into or not going to give you a breakdown from, Irene Aldana and Norma Dumont is your prelim main event. Irene Aldana is a dog. I'm very excited to watch her fight again. Norma Dumont coming down from 45 to fight at 35. She's looked much better. That is a great fight, and it's a pick on -110. So the bookies have no idea which way that's going to go. If I had to take a bet, I would bet on Aldana just because I really like her striking and her boxing. Ignacio Baja Mendez is also on the card. Very fun fighter to watch. And then Raul Rojas Jr. opens up the card against the Ricci line. He's a -1,000 favorite. Would like to see if he's made some improvements. I'm not saying he has not impressed me. He's so young, and the fact that he's winning UFC fights is crazy. I just hope we continue to see him get gradually better and better and better each fight. Don't need to see him KO somebody tonight or tomorrow night or do anything crazy. Just want to see gradual improvement from a young guy still getting better. Chiwiwi is your opener for the main card, or for the card in general. So that is the main card breakdown for you. I'll just go through my picks one more time for you. Ronaldo Rodriguez, Daniel Zellhuber, Brian Ortega, Valentina Shevchenko, and then the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley by KO over Merab Dvalishvili. Those are my picks for the main card. So let's get into, let's now jump into the second ever edition of PWay's Parlay. Okay. 0-1 to start the year. We don't love it. Not the end of the world. Would have liked to hit the first one and get the confidence high. But I feel good about this one. Like betting UFC. Maybe the most unpredictable sport in the world to bet, though. So take that as you will. 3 more picks for you today. 3 more picks. First up on PWay's Parlay for week number 2, or second ever attempt at hitting one, Brian Ortega money line. Now let me preface this second one by saying we are not going for short odds. We're looking to make some fucking bands here, fellas, ladies and gentlemen. We're looking to make some money. Big odds is what we're looking for, because if you don't have a lot of money to bet, you can still win a decent amount back. So Brian Ortega money line is the first bet on that card. I just think at +150, you kind of have to take him here in some capacity. It doesn't have to be in a parlay. It can just be a straight up bet. But Brian Ortega, plus money against a guy he's way more experienced than, it feels like a bet you should at least play at some point during the night. Number 2 on the parlay, Valentina Shevchenko money line. Yep, the bullet returns to form tomorrow night, regains her belt. I believe she'd only be the second woman ever to win her belt twice. No, excuse me, third. Amanda Nunes did it. Rose Namajunas has done it. And she would be the third. I don't think Joanna did it, but don't quote me on that. She could be the third woman to ever become a two-time champ of a division. I just think Valentina's focused. I think she knows this is her last push to the title, and she needs a win. I mentioned in the breakdown that I thought she was 100% winning the first fight. She was 100% winning the second fight on the scorecards. And then the 10-8 round in the fifth leaves us at a draw. But I thought Valentina was a better fighter that night. I think she gets it done tomorrow night and gets her belt back. So Brian Ortega, Valentina Shevchenko, and then Sugar Sean O'Malley to win by KO. Not money line. We're betting to win by KO. Could be in the first, could be in the second, could be in the third, fourth, or fifth. Doesn't matter. We need him to win by KO. We need him to knock Merab Dvalishvili's lights out. Now you're probably thinking, Parker, I know for sure two of those are plus money because Valentina and Brian are plus money are underdogs on the money line. Well, that Sugar to win by KO is also plus money. So we're going big time here. This bet is plus 1,237. 1,002 or 1,237 are your odds. Plus 1,237, 1,237. Fuck it. Fuck it. I like all of these plays. I'm most nervous, obviously, about the two underdogs in the money line play. You got to feel good when you bet on Valentina no matter what. Ortega, there's a lot of question marks. But if we get the Brian Ortega that rolled his ankle before he finished Yair Rodriguez, I think Brian Ortega can win this fight. Ortega, Shevchenko money line, Sugar Sean to win by KO. That is your PWay's parlay for tomorrow's UFC 306 card that goes down at Sphere in Las Vegas. I'm so excited for this. I'm going to be excited all day tomorrow. College football is going to get me to the card. And then we'll be ready to talk some fights coming up on Monday. We'll have a reaction. So, yes, you can. So, this is the last part of the week on Friday. Thank you guys so much once again. Listening, subscribing, commenting, whatever you can do, we appreciate it. Tell your friends that PWay's got a podcast. If you listen to 5 minutes, I'll take that. If you listen to 2, I'll take that as well. If you listen to the full thing, thank you so much. I really, truly appreciate that. And the support means everything to me. Just trying to get this little podcast off the ground, talking sports every day, repping Nate Diaz today. So thank you guys once again. Always appreciative of all the support and you guys watching and staying till the bitter end. Coming up on Monday's podcast, full NFL reaction from week 2. And of course, UFC 306 reaction. So big pod coming up on Monday. I think you guys will really enjoy that one. We'll break it down. UFC and NFL will be separated and it'll be a little bit longer than just the NFL recap was, but I think you guys will enjoy hearing some of my recap thoughts on the UFC fights and, of course, on NFL Week 2. But enjoy your weekend. Enjoy college football on Saturday. Enjoy the UFC fights tomorrow. And then, of course, enjoy another full slate of glorious NFL football. That's going to be it for me. Hope you guys stay blessed out there. Much love to everybody for listening. Peace.